Hello and welcome to SquishiVision, where I'm about to react to Lower Decks Reflection. Um, this episode was good. So my issue with previous episodes is not that the episodes are bad, but they don't really hit my taste. But this was a pretty decent Star Trek episode. Like, look, I get what Lower Decks is going for, and it's fine. It's a self-parody of Star Trek while also being Star Trek. But sometimes it's purely comedy and it's not really a narrative, and that's fine. That's what the show is about. I'm not complaining. It's not what I'm looking for. Or necessarily, but this was funny, but also had some significant plot points and like drama and like So there's like most Star Trek, there's an A and a B plot. The A plot's with Rutherford dealing with a reflection, and we finally get the payoff to a plot point which I genuinely forgot was actually a thing. So I think this was at the end of season 1 when he plugged the Badgie software into his eye thing, and then he saw like a memory of like shadowy figures, and then he kind of like skip over that. And I did at the time kind of think we were going to come back to it, but it was also kind of played off very jokingly, like everyone kind of like he dismissed that memory and was like, okay, well, I guess we'll deal with that. And then I guess it took a long time to kind of look back to it. I generally forgot it was a thing, and then this episode kind of like out of nowhere, because it was never really brought up. I mean, at least unless there's like some really subtle references in previous episodes, because it's revealed that occasionally he glitches between the two personalities, and it kind of creates like personality shifts, and he gets like flashes of memory and some behavior like changes, but it's very subtle because it's not like a full takeover. Unless it's like really like subtle and I've not missed any of that. This kind of came out of nowhere. Certainly, if it was subtle, it was subtle to the point of like, well, you kind of not foreshadowing anything. But yeah, so we get a reveal a backstory that Rutherford's completely different. Like when he first joined Starfleet, he was a racer. He did like illegal races. He was still a good engineer, but like he was much more of a like not a goofy person, but a very kind of edgy person. And then he was involved, knowingly or otherwise, in some kind of conspiracy to some kind of engineering thing, and there was an accident, and they decided to cover up the accident. They needed to like erase his memory of everything, and it was so extensive that he essentially became a new person. Which just begs the question of, does Rutherford, I can't remember if it's been revealed, but does Rutherford have family? And like, has that ever been brought up? I think maybe he doesn't, and that's like part of the reason why. But yeah, that creates his brand new identity, and that's so the implant was a cover up to actually like disguise and that memory. But yeah, how this episode deals with it is quite amusing. At first you think, oh, is it just like a random glitch, like, or has like something like some weird program taken over his implant? Is that what's influencing him? But then you kind of get, well, actually this is someone. Very early on it puts like clues that, oh, this is actually a version of Rutherford, like what's happened here. Has he like got like an alternate universe Rutherford memory, or was that, and then it obviously it was a earlier Rutherford. The question is, well, why isn't this now Rutherford remember the earlier Rutherford? I also like, but it didn't do the whole evil twin plot of people of like, it could have gone like, basic like just pure the comedic route of being like, oh, an evil twin has taken over Rutherford, he's gonna go and like cause mischief, but that kind of gets stopped fairly early on. I mean, I guess it's only half an episode, but fairly early on. I mean, which that's what I expect. Like, you think with all the times people have had like been taken over or had their parents stolen in Starfleet, but there should be like a general policy of the second someone acts, similar like how in real life we have a thing of someone acts abnormal to what they usually like, maybe like there's some kind of mental health or like neurological damage kind of thing, but like bumped up to 11, where if someone's acting anywhere abnormal in Starfleet, put them under arrest and like do a full medical scan. I guess it's a very kind of slippery slope policy. I'm glad like Tendi, to be fair, actually Tendi wouldn't have realised if Rutherford hadn't worked out about that by him somehow attacking his eyepiece also affected the eyepiece in real life, and that caused earlier Rutherford's memory to lose his cool, and Teddy then to immediately realise that it wasn't really Rutherford, which could have easily been covered over, and essentially, yeah, they pretty quickly like send the security team after him, and I mean he almost gets away, but he gets stunned, and then there's like a mind battle, and that mind battle is done very well. Like we see like the kind of the Rutherford coming to grips with his history, the new Rutherford, the old Rutherford trying to like re-establish his identity, exploring a bit of the past. We get kind of sneaks and things like that, and then eventually it culminates in a ship race, and the animation is actually pretty decent. I mean, it's very basic, it's very kind of video gamey, but it's very video gamey, kind of direct to TV children's film from like the early 90s, but like it's kind of late 2000s, but it's kind of endearing in that sense, and I actually kind of like that endearment, and I like the kind of the twist, or rather the kind of thing where it's like, well, I didn't use my memory to come up with a brand new ship, I used my memory to come by crew, and that kind of that's good visual storytelling, that's good show don't tell, because it shows the difference between the two Rutherfords, one which is kind of very egotistic and very self-obsessed and very kind of self-assured, but to the point where they neglect kind of friendships, and you refer to as like very much Starfleet through and through. So yeah, and that the race kind of cut short by the fact that the Romulans appear, and Rutherford shows his value by still rescuing his alternate the ego, and that person kind of gives more memories but not enough, and now we've got this kind of arc which I hope we come back to, where there's a shadowy Starfleet officer. But yeah, that was a pretty decent someone just messaged me asking when the meeting starts, since the meeting, I'm so confused. I rescheduled the meeting to 9 PM and now people ask me when's the meeting. Some people are just okay. Anyway, where was I? So I mean, yeah, and hopefully like they put like, I know it's been like, oh, Rutherford was taken over, so if anyone like experienced a bad, because he upsets a girl, so it's like, well, surely someone's gonna like write a reference, be like, it wasn't him, don't hold him against him. Like this happens quite a lot, so she's guilty of the whole, this guy's acting really weird, maybe I should like raise an alarm. And then the B plot was they basically had to do essentially an open day of Starfleet, which I found hilarious, but also makes a lot of sense, and actually explains why we get some people who are like in Starfleet at the moment who aren't kind of Federation members. But it's like this fair, and everyone comes up to bully Starfleet, and it's kind of like, in a sense, a bit silly, because like Starfleet's kind of held very highly, especially in the Federation, but also they use the opportunity to really like pick out a lot of nitpicks, things that fans of themselves nitpicked about Starfleet for like years, like the whole thing about it claims to be a peaceful exploration kind of thing, but it's very obviously follows a very naval structure with the ranks and stuff. I mean, some of it is kind of ludicrous arguments, like the whole, oh, if you're in Starfleet, you'd be turned into Borg. Well, that's like a risk of a job, but it's not a highly likely one. Like, out of everyone's in Starfleet, very few get turned into Borg. I guess you get more like, you probably just liked it kind of Borg if you just in the kind of the oceans. In the oceans, in space. Them calling out how often Starfleet changes the uniform, which is also something I've kind of read about. It's very inconsistent. I'm not sure how much it kind of relates to real life uniform changes. Obviously, military uniforms in real life, they change. And there was one recently for British Army uniform, all the way back in 2010-ish, 9-ish. And I don't know how long the DPMs before, but were lasted for. But it's very inconsistent in Star Trek. Like, you have some uniforms which like last decades, and then some which will last like not even a year. Like within like this new, I mean, also like within this like new era of like this current era of Star Trek, which is basically late TNG era, post TNG era, we go through about 5 different variations of uniforms. So they've got like 6 maybe. So they've got like a point there. And someone who wants like get the full collection. Let me catch up, please. I have this uniform and also like the formal version of the next era of this uniform. I don't have a lot of money or time to source these because for some reason this is like one you buy off the website, and it pretty much just you can either buy this version or you can buy the original series version. They don't really acknowledge the other versions, so I guess you can have to like go to like specialist tailors to get those. But eventually Ensign Boiler kind of like starts basically assaulting people because someone took his rank chip, which is, I guess, is a bit of like a comedy thing, because in reality someone grabbing your rank is an assault and he would have been well within his rights to defend himself, but then going and attacking random people is probably too much. But that's kind of that's the human part of it. That's the kind of not meant to take too seriously. And it's kind of wholesome that he actually gets put into the brig, but everyone's like kind of saying he did a good job and kind of setting up Starfleet, and they were just following procedure. It's kind of like that wholesome, the kind of like, I always love it when people get like the kind of the tap on the hand punishment for doing something which is morally good, but policy wise not so much. So I did like that. And then there was kind of the plot hook at the end of, well, Marina's always been very kind of critical of some parts of Starfleet, and she does like a lot of the parts and does want to stay in Starfleet for the things which do benefit her, but really she's not that kind of loyal to Starfleet, and a lot of the things she gets frustrated by how much it restricts her. And this person who she's met is like, well, you could do a lot of the good you do, but without all the restrictions, and she's like, no, and then she hangs up and then she kind of saves her contact, and that's like, ooh. And you can kind of see it. It's nice that we end that visual point of that dilemma. So I really like this episode. Not, again, I don't want to stress, I'm not saying that the rest of Lodex is bad, it's just episodes that are purely comedy sketches, and especially ones which have like blue comedy or kind of like dark comedy and stuff like that. It doesn't really appeal to my comedy. I like a mix of drama. I tend to lean more towards my comedies being like a mix of drama and comedy. I mean, don't be wrong, I like absurd sketches, but I don't really have much to kind of. None of the absurd sketch comedy in Star Trek is unique or out there or clever. It's not like Monty Python-esque level humor. It's very kind of cartoonish, very done humor. It's just got Star Trek skin in it. So I don't really much to talk about because, like, well, it's funny. I mean, if it's funny, it's funny. It's nothing like mind-blowing. I'm not gonna raise this in a pedestal of comedy. And very few things. Look, let's be honest. This show is funny, but it's not like the pedestal of humor. It's trying to be two things at once. And I appreciate the Star Trek Easter eggs, but like, I'm not here to point out Star Trek Easter eggs. That's not what I do, because I'm not that kind of fan who's like, I pick up on things I pick up on, but I'm not obsessed with picking up on Easter eggs kind of big deal. And also, I mean, I am curious, but that's something for later on. So this is a good episode where there was a mix of good comedy and drama, and I definitely appreciate it for it. Anyway, I have a meeting I need to prepare for, and then actually I'm going to celebrate the fact that I have handed in my penultimate piece of coursework and finished my master's project by ordering takeaway, watching all 3 Andor episodes, reacting to that, watching She-Hulk, reacting to that, maybe watching Rings of Power, reacting to that, and then if I still have energy, I'm gonna react to. I'm gonna play Fortnite. So I'm gonna do a lot of streaming tonight, or much as I can before I pass out. Or before I need to be sensible because I've got like a thing I need to do tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see. Well, I'll make more content later on.